Ed, you had?
Say that again, Steve.
Exercises, drills for Connell participation.
Have a G402. It's an ICS for elected and senior officials coming up November 18th. It's a 4-hour course and it's a virtual offering as well. If you want to register, you can do that through the Ohio Public Safety Training Campus.
All right, thank you, Ed. Does anybody have any announcements or other business?
Steve, this is Randy. Do we need to plan on elections for December?
We do, and that's in my list of announcements, but that's a nice segue. So,
And it'll turn green.
We will be taking nominations for the vice chair. That's a 2-year term, every odd number year, which, you know, a policeman's not good at math, but I believe 21 is an odd number year. So, taking nominations and anybody have information about grants? I have a little bit, but
I believe I saw Larry Tafe on the line.
so I'll do what my notes, what I can decipher from my notes from the October 8th CCESAB meeting. Radios will move to the 18 grant and move training to the 19 grant. UASI was extended. Sorry, my notes are hurried and not very complete. So LPRs were approved. I believe that was the county council meeting on September 29th. And construction is to start, I guess, in October. It says next month here. Radio rebid and combined release with October 13th. They're going to have a pre-bid conference. I missed the date. And I believe the close is November 24th. That's all that I have. My notes from that.
Steve, this is Larry Tafe from Grant.
Did I do close?
I just want to update the rebid for the portable radios. That was or is 17 UASI and some 17 state homeland. That was then combined with the 19 grants. So we're talking Shaker, University, Lyndhurst, and Beechwood, and Oakwood, Walton Hills, and East Cleveland. That bid closed 19 minutes ago. I can't tell you what we received, but that hopefully we got 2. So we can make a decision and move ahead. So that's the current state of the portable radio grant projects.
All right, hopefully that does go well, because that'll come pretty close to completing the county anyway.
Yep. So if anybody has a question?
A question,
When are those grants going to be like public or attention, or the bids rather?
So we'll have to sort of go through to make sure that the bids comply and so we're hoping, I certainly hope that we're able to review and make an award and be able to get this selected certainly before the end of the month. You know, in fact, it'd be great to have an award to a vendor by the end of the month. That's certainly pushing the process, but you know, we've now been going through this event since early in this calendar year. So, you know, I can't give you a date of when it would become, of when they would become public, although certainly calling into the opening of the bids was a public event at 11 o'clock.
Larry, it's Nick. I got one quick question for you. Is the county, would they entertain, you know, back, and my guess is this is probably gonna be the last chunk of money that we're gonna have for radios, but I'm hearing a lot of scuttlebutt from a lot of our member agencies, especially out of the Brecksville facility, that these radios are just not holding up, and I've got a lot of agencies that are just scrapping them and buying Motorola. And this was at least one of my major concerns back when we're going with the lowest bidder and we did away with that evaluation committee. With any of this now, since these newer radios are actually in the hands of people, and you know, and I don't have firsthand experience, I'm only hearing second, third hand from the chiefs, that this is something that can be reevaluated, or is this just one of those done deals and we just have to accept it?
Evaluating, you mean determining what is the best radio?
Yeah, so I'm going back to the very, very first round. We had a police and fire committee, and you know, we ran the radios with the saws, noise canceling, and then their ability to hold up, you know, that 10, 15 years.
Well, certainly it's hard to make a determination on holding up for 15 years when you're evaluating a brand new radio. But to your point, and I recognize that a lot of you have have a history with a certain radio, and maybe those have lasted a good long time. We are hampered by the evaluation process, and we did do an evaluation. This was like back in 2011, the first time we started this process. We evaluated a handful of radios. We did it again two years ago. It may be as many as 3 years ago. And the question to your point about longevity of the product, we have specifications about capabilities, and those are the things for which we would evaluate, and they were evaluated by a group of fire and police chiefs back in whatever it was, let's say 2017, and they made a determination that radio at the time, I think it's the Harris one, was satisfactory and could be selected, and I think it was the low bid. And so it met the specifications and met the requirements of the capabilities for the radio. How it's determined as whether it can sustain a lifetime of 15 years of use, that, you know, that's one of those things that I don't know that can be evaluated, and that the state would allow that as an evaluation, because it's not necessarily a capability. So,
Gotcha, thank you.
Yeah, if it doesn't work, if the functions that we're asking for don't work, aren't achievable, then that's something different. And at the moment, I haven't heard that the radios that have been received have failed in that. So, any other questions about the radio bid?
This is Craig Bollinger. I have a quick question. What
Yeah.
would be possibilities following up on some of the problems of what is happening? Actually getting a written evaluation at like a 1 year, 2 year, whatever year interval, if that would, help the process, hinder the process, be more trouble than it's worth. Just throwing the suggestion out there.
Yeah. That's certainly I don't know that it would hurt the process. It would be, so unless we say that that our evaluation process will include, or our selection of a product will include an evaluation, and in the bid include that you have to send a radio or 2 radios the same way we did in 2017. We couldn't do that on the back end. We couldn't do that now. And so, but giving information, or you guys, the end users, providing information and feedback about what's going on with the radios, if there's some use the term systemic issue, some quality issue about the radios, then that's certainly helpful in the process. One of the questions, if for instance the radios that are in service are the low bid, and there are problems, then we would have to figure out a way with the state, if there's a reason why we should not be buying them, to eliminate that bid. You'd probably get significant pushback from the vendor, and we would have to have a reason why we're not selecting that low bid. We certainly can't simply buy them because people prefer a different radio, or another radio has a better long-term life expectancy. I don't think the state or feds would use that as a determining factor to eliminate a manufacturer from the opportunity to access grant Homeland Security funds. But to that, if you guys and users want to have an evaluation and get together about that, to provide that information to us for the times we are going to bid, that is certainly helpful on our end, because perhaps we can use that information to add to the specs for when we put them together and solicit bids.
So it can't be a disqualifier. It would more or less be a determining factor in upcoming bids.
Yes. So again, we would have to have them as qualifiers, because we couldn't use them as determining factors, because unless it is a qualifier, unless there's something ahead of time saying that this stuff, it needs to do X, and the radios aren't doing X, then it doesn't meet the specification. We can't have it after the fact saying, if you have a low bid and they meet the specs that we've put out, we can't then say, but we don't like that radio because that radio does these other things. And so we're going to select a higher bid.
And to
So
piggyback off of what, sorry, this is Leslie with Public Safety. And to piggyback off of what Larry's saying, we run into the risk. We only have so many players that bid on these bids anyway. So if we were to start disqualifying them, then we're going to run into issues of not having enough bids. And then we'll just have to keep going out until we have enough bids. So, I mean, Larry's absolutely right. If there are issues that need addressed, then they should be addressed in specification development, and we should be including those, you know, making sure our specs address those issues prior to going out to bid, rather than trying to eliminate afterward.
Actually, that was the point I was trying to make. I said if we could probably, if we find something that's intrinsic to one manufacturer and find out what that is, we'd have to do it in the bid phase versus future bid phase where you could say, well, we don't want this guy because he didn't do this, or their radio, in the past, the radio's done this. We'd have to requalify or actually rewrite the bid specifications to say the radio will not do this because we know that manufacturer's radio does that.
Well, I'm going to jump in here a bit. We mentioned before the county's pretty much done. I know CCESAB is done. So the likelihood of us getting any grant funding for any radios in the future is pretty small. Now that being said, we have had in the past, we're told of that very same thing. And for various different truly legitimate reasons, other projects that money was awarded for weren't able to be completed. And they asked for projects that were ready to go. And we have always had one. So I'm not saying that we will never ever get grant funding. I'm just saying it's probably very unlikely. So I don't know. I don't think that's a bad idea, but I think it's going to be quite a bit of work having surveyed police officers before on radios and reading surveys from police officers before. I'm sure fire's similar. You're not going to get a very technical evaluation. So somebody would have to chair that group and direct them, and reach back out to the people that write that evaluation to clarify them and make them more generic. Because typically what I've seen is this radio's job sounds digitally, which I think is hilarious. It's not a digital radio system. I've seen that repeatedly. So not a bad idea. I just think it's very difficult to manage. And I'm not sure how much of a value that would have in the end, especially since we're pretty much done with this project.
Right, but again, it's something we can look at for the future when we're writing bids to get feedback. Because I know we purchased some through a grant that and I'm not going to name the manufacturer, but then subsequent to that, somebody was finding out that they were turning off automatically and they were changing channels and stuff. And that's something we may need to include in future bids should the opportunity ever come up where we do need to get it again. And I think speaking of, I forget who the initial person that brought this up was. I think maybe that's what they were saying. Maybe it was Nick that, are we going to have an opportunity that if we have to reevaluate our bid to bring it up to include some of the things that we've seen in some of the manufacturers already.
So if that question is posed to grants and the procurement, so those would be things that could be included in specification development. And yes, so and I would to your description, what we need to make sure is not occurring by that does not appear as if we are creating specifications that that look like they are seeking a single unit.
Right.
Or
one manufacturer.
Unit. Yes. So if units, I would think that if units are changing channels randomly or having other operational issues, that that those would be certainly qualifying issues to make a radio questionable. Yes, and so for an evaluation, if those are if that's the case, then I'm just are these things brought up to the manufacturer if they're happening now to a radio?
I believe they were, and I think it might have been Chief Elliott that brought it up to the attention with the, I think they were Kenwood E.F. Johnson. They were shutting off arbitrarily, which obviously posed a danger.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they were addressed in the bid specification. Again, I don't know who put in the latest bids. I'm assuming it was probably Harrison Motorola, but you know, again, it's something that we have to, as Steve said, the point might be moot because we may never get another opportunity to bid on more radios. There might be no funding available for it, but I think it's something that we need to address. And I think that maybe Nick brought it up and he said, you know, can we do in the future, if this comes up, can we put another committee together to evaluate the radios and include some of the changes that we need to see done? And again, not to necessarily exclude a manufacturer. They may have accounted for it, and they may have, you know, changed their radio, but we need to ensure that this is something that we look at in the future. Whereas before, I think it was almost like they meet the minimum bid specifications, and they submitted a bid, they were lowest bidder, and we got them. Obviously not knowing that this was going to happen because we wouldn't put anything out there that's unsafe, but nonetheless, we need to address that a little bit more strictly in the future, if you will, where the bids may be a little bit tighter or a little bit more explicative with who, you know, what we're looking for.
Yes. So with that being said, I think in the future, if we have these opportunities again, then it may be possible to look at a review and an evaluation of the product once when the bidders submit that can be since we may have like all three manufacturers currently in having been purchased in the last 10 years. So we have data on their on the quality and issues, and so evaluating that may be certainly may be possible again. Doing it every time, I don't know is possible, and I don't know that the state would really accept us repeatedly evaluating and keep coming back to evaluating the same one, which again may not be the least expensive. So that's, but at this point, 3 years, and maybe it would be longer now, that could be possible.
Right. This is Craig. If I can throw this out there, I don't have a problem, and if somebody wants to come help me and join the party, put together some kind of a spreadsheet and use it as a reference material of, you know, make, model, problems, who had it, find out if it is the radio or find out if it's user error. I've seen some guys wearing radios, and we've all seen this in some weird spots on their body, and they complain it's a problem and move it, you don't have it. So, you know, Nick, if you want to give me a call sometime, I can start to get some feedback from you. It'd probably take a couple of months to put this together, but I don't have a problem doing it just for the betterment of all the public safety agencies and the bidding process, you know, here in the county.
Okay, Craig, just as a suggestion when you do that, and I appreciate being willing to take that on, is that
Steve, I can hardly hear you, Steve.
Someone else talking, or is that back to the background noise? It's gone now. So, Craig, I appreciate you being willing to take this on. This is the suggestion is maybe some things you might look for. I mean, these are pretty severe problems. Radio's turning off, you end up on the fire channel. You don't know it. It's obviously not the proper function of the radio. It shouldn't do that. So I would imagine that those agencies have probably, I would hope that they have approached the manufacturer and their service organization. So if they have documentation of that, that would be awesome to include that. So that might be something you might want to look for.
This is Leslie again. There was something that when Nick was asking his question, he mentioned that, you know, he had heard of agencies just scrapping the radios or turning them back in and buying something else. So I just wanted to bring up that back in February, we sent out a letter as well as with some information on the disposition process, as well as the form that needs filled out. So just a friendly reminder that with grant purchases, we can't just get rid of stuff or turn it back in. It has to run through the grants team to review and sign off on, just to make sure we're staying within the grant rules. And if I have to, you know, send that to anyone, let me know. I'd be happy to.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Leslie. That did go out. Do we have any other announcements or other business?
Steve, it's Mark Christie from County EMA.
Hi, Mark.
How you doing? I just wanted to make a quick mention for everybody's awareness. I'm sure they may have heard about it, but we did activate our EOC yesterday and into the early hours of this morning in support of the elections with our county board of elections. And I just wanted to say that it was the first time we had ever done that. It worked out pretty well, I think, for all parties involved. We had about 10 board of elections staff members in our EOC that were monitoring and sharing information and making decisions for the 290 some odd polling locations scattered throughout our county. Special thanks to our ESF partners that were here, Police Chiefs Association representation, Fire Association representation, FBI, DHS. I mean, we had a lot of partners in the seats that were able to quickly resolve issues that did come up with our Board of Elections folks. And so it just, like I said, Mark, the first time we had done that, credit and to Kevin on the call and Adam too from EMA that, worked it last night. I think everything went pretty smoothly. We'll probably repeat the process next go around. I think Board of Elections, had a positive experience here, but just want to make a mention of that. And again, special thanks to anybody that might be on this call right now that supported that effort last night. That's all.
I voted. Did that count?
Thank you for voting.
So thank you, Mark. I want to bring up one thing real quick. I don't remember how long ago, but Dick Miller and Drew Ferguson did some training for incident commanders and chiefs around the county. There was 3 or 4 sessions. Wasn't how to use your radio. It was just best practices for communications for incident commanders. So we have these radios with these capabilities, and I know in the last few meetings I've been at, it's come up about discussion about the county template. How do we get that going? I think all those things would be great to review with those folks again. If we have any, what I'm looking for is any interest in someone. You believe there's interest for participation or for someone to serve as those trainings, those instructors. And if so, put together an application and submit that to CCESAB and see where that goes. I mean, our last meeting here, there was some discussion about planning for large-scale events and talking about capabilities of radio systems. Well, people making those plans aren't aware of their options. Well, they're not going to reach out. So I think it's probably a good time to revisit that. I'm just putting that out to the group to see what response there is. If you want to respond now, that's great. Or if you want to send me an email, that's fine too.
Hey, Steve, it's Adam. Hey,
I have a PowerPoint already developed to that end. Lisa helped me tool it and refine it a little bit. I'd be more than happy to take that on.
All right, thank you. And if we have any other comments, just go ahead and shoot me an email and say, we have any other business?
I didn't hear any,
No.
so I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We got to call the executive session. There's no need for an executive session. Our next meeting is January 13th. Now we have a motion from PJ to adjourn any second. And Lisa
This is
seconded
Randy. I'll second it.
I think Lisa beat you, Randy, but thank you all. I guess immortal words of Chris Flynn, vote with your feet, and I guess your name. Thanks all for.
Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
And